and welcome to the Daily Space Weather, folks. I'm your host, Dan, aka smAsho Mash. And we see a sunspot has formed down in the southwestern corner there of the solar disk. We'll show you a close-up. This is about 10.5 hours of 171 angstroms activity here. Ionized iron, folks. And we've got an even closer close-up than that. Check it out. Here's a 304 angstroms view, and we got some big filaments there in the north. First, here's the southern regions. Again, 10.5 hours of data there from the SDO. And there's the northern areas, and we've got an extreme close-up of that too. And you can make these yourself at helioviewer.org if you like. We also see a great image of this at spaceweather.com. We'll show you momentarily. And we finally got the electrons that we ordered. So let's blast through a bunch of other data, as there's plenty of stuff to talk about once again. A little bit of X-ray activity, nothing really resembling any kind of significant flaring or anything like that, as reported by the GOES 16 and GOES 15. Here's the image we were talking about. Check it out. That one's at spaceweather.com, right on their homepage. And the 10.7 centimeter radio flux is still pretty solar minimumed. It's solar minimumed at 71 solar flux units. And one quick note about the thermosphere. And it's good news, folks. The thermosphere never got as cold as it did at the end of the last solar cycle. So at the end of cycle 23, the thermosphere was colder, cosmic ray flux was higher, and this link is on spaceweather.com. If you'd like to go read about it, feel free. And welcome to the Neo Renaissance and cycle 25. So yeah, we're seeing more cycle 25 activity than 24, and we will certainly have been deemed correct on the guess of when cycle 24 would end. And we saw 3 periods of geomagnetic unrest there in the past couple of days, caused by that coronal hole wind stream. A very even sort of coronal hole wind stream there. It got to pretty high speeds, not to super high densities or anything like that. KP back down to 1. And if you watched yesterday's cosmology segment, we did cover cosmic rays. Current solar wind data showing a phi angle of 327 degrees, a very low solar wind density at 1.78 protons per cubic centimeter. Oh, it's just popped up to 210. And a ramping down of the solar wind speed, down now below 500 at 495 kilometers a second. Still faster than I can pedal a bike, but more of a nominal solar wind. And there's the data from ACE. Next, we'll look at the geospace magnetosphere movies here. The pressure. Under pressure is the magnetosphere, and that's a good thing. And you can see some very uniform times there around 9:30. Very uniform fields around the torus here, which you're looking across the side of, or here you're looking at the top of it. And it's more of a crescent-shaped torus, and we don't see a whole lot of perturbations translating down to the ground this time, as the geospace has calmed down a bit. So there's the 4 hours of data about magnetic perturbations on the globe. And we see continued pulsing into the southern Indian Ocean there as the South Pole continues to apparently creep toward southwestern Australia. If you weren't aware, it's a geomagnetic excursion. We've got 2 North Poles. And let's just say weird stuff would happen to your compass if you went to the geographic North Pole. Anyway, there's the 4 hours of data courtesy University of Michigan geospace model. And we finally got the electrons we ordered, and they showed up pretty much right on time. Maybe a day late, but anyway, there's that increased electron flux that we were talking about following that coronal hole wind stream, as they do. since electrons tend to chase protons around in the universe. And we're going to be hearing a lot more about this as a result of the Orbiter 2 mission, which should be launching tomorrow, and we're super excited. Greater than 2 mega electron flux has come up a little bit here off the floor as well, and there you see that measurement. And we did get into the alert threshold as forecasted. Pretty much everything we forecasted was correct here. There's your increase in the electron flux during the ramping down of the coronal hole wind stream. And this is a standard thing that goes on here, and it has to do with the massive electron availability of the sun. And there's the one that includes the lower energy, the lower density 0.8 mega electron volts. Next we'll look at the ionosphere. This is 6 hours here, and there you can see timestamps. Ionosphere is looking pretty normal here, to tell you the truth. Something that I always do. Though I might occasionally be wrong. You won't catch me telling a lie. It just simply doesn't happen. Anyway, ionosphere looking pretty normal. Let's bring up the latest image. And it's up to 12 megahertz there on the sunny side, as it is summer in the southern hemisphere. GOES magnetometers are continued spiky here, and we are expecting to see a little lower readings and continued spikiness as opposed to smooth waves on the GOES magnetometers. Keep in mind that these N's and M's mean noon and midnight local time for the satellites, and that does have an effect on their measurements. Speaking of measurements, here are a lot more measurements. It's the GONG 2 top view ecliptic plane field plot. So this is why we're going to see continued spikiness in the GOES magnetometer, folks. For you new viewers, you see these bunched up areas of magnetic field force lines. That is a bunch of plasma in the corona blocking the magnetometer readings. And without getting further into the weeds on it, let's just move on. Before that, this data is 1 hour and 23 minutes old. Oh, club soda is the best. Oh, man. I think a quake came in just as we did show prep here. Nope, that was yesterday. All right, anyway. We see some deep earthquakes, first of all. Let me make sure I have the latest data here. We see some deep ones and some shallow ones. So here's a 4.4 at India. That one is at depth. And that one is near where some people think one of the geomagnetic poles will eventually be located. And let's just scroll up the list here. So a series of quakes there on the west coast of South America, as that remains my favorite place for a very large quake. And indeed, we saw 3 deep quakes happen all right in the same spot there. Let's just continue up the list. Heads up western South America. There's that 5.5 in the Drake Passage. I believe that was the largest of the past 24. At least the highest magnitude. And there's a very deep quake at Fiji, the deep quake capital of the world. 580 kilometers at a 4.6 magnitude. That would be nearly a 7 magnitude if it happened at the surface. In that rifty spot of the ocean. Here's another deep quake on New Zealand. Shout out Kiwis. Leave a comment if you felt that quake. So there's another one of those deep quakes we talked about at Chile. 5.2 magnitude at 103 kilometers. And then only 15 minutes later, a 4.5 at a greater depth. 208 kilometers. So there's an interesting deep quake event, a deepening of the quakes actually, over a very short period of time. Some freaky activity down deep, below the Earth's crust. Or where we expect it to be below the Earth's crust. Here's a very shallow quake at Washington, that one at 400 meters above sea level. Let's check the location of that. And that quake kicked off in the Mount Baker National Forest area. There's a location of that. Very, very shallow quake. And next we'll head to windy.com, who, by the way, has a great mobile app. Perhaps check that out if you're a complete weather and geophysics nerd. It'll have more data than you could possibly deal with. And we're just letting this advance for about 24 hours here based on the GFS forecast, looking at pressure zones. Northern hemisphere, in the west, the entire western northern hemisphere is dominated by dry air, folks. There's where things will be at 1400 universal time tomorrow. Looks like a big kink in the pressure right there in the center of the U.S., stretching from Lake Superior all the way down to El Paso. Next, look at volcanoes. Kluchevskoy erupting, producing a 20,000-foot ash plume. Flight level 7,000 as Mount Aso explodes. Sakurajima erupted, produce a 8,000-foot ash plume. Dakono, 7,000-foot ash plume there as it explodes. Sangay exploding, 19,000-foot plume there. Flight level 16,000 as Revenador explodes. And those intermittent emissions at Sabancaya are an indication not to attempt to hang glide over the caldera. Let's talk about... Let's talk... Just kidding, folks. I'm not going to talk about that. Were you aware that an American has died of coronavirus? A sad story. One of the guys that was warning about it in the first place has died. Not in the U.S., though, in China. We will link the article, as well as to the coronavirus section of smAshomash.com/forum. If you haven't set up an account there, perhaps do so, as the coronavirus section provides a link for a massive repository of information, as well as the opportunity for conversation and the sharing of other information and data. That's smAshomash.com/forum. And there's the latest graph of coronavirus in China versus the rest of the world. And keep in mind, folks, it's going to remain underreported for a long time as there are millions and millions and millions of people quarantined. Total confirmed cases 35,000 is close. And deaths are now 725. Fortunately, it looks like some people are recovering. And check out lightningmaps.org. It looks like there's some lightning off of the coast of Ireland. Could be a dangerous day for fishing. It's lightningmaps.org, and it's a real-time lightning map, folks. It will time the thunder. And it looks like we're getting some snow in Pennsylvania. I'm super excited, as it's been way too warm where I am. And no, I don't think it's caused by carbon dioxide. Some wintry mix happening in western Montana and northern Idaho, as well as Washington and Oregon. Next, we'll look at the water vapor map to see a massive Nike symbol of dry air, stretching all the way from Newfoundland to San Diego. And the jet stream is pushing some cold air at me, finally, now that it's the dead of winter. And we're expecting I would anticipate an extra late spring as a result, as we just did not receive appropriate amounts of cold air, while record snow fell in all kinds of other places. Let's look at a convergence. Today's spot is over Arkansas. So if you're on the northern border of Arkansas, the border of Arkansas and Missouri, you've got a massive pressure gradient above your head. And if you see lenticular clouds, don't let idiotic YouTube channels try to tell you that they're flying saucers, as that's ridiculous nonsense. And here's the water vapor over Europe, as well as Africa. And looks like there could be some Sahara sand kicking up there, folks. And I'm not an expert on the geography nor the weather of Africa. Perhaps we'll look into that in the future. Next, nullschool.net, looking at the jet streams of the Eastern world. extreme meridional jet stream flow there in the northern Middle East, as well as some, check out the bends down there. And there are indeed news stories about Antarctica melting today. Oddities over Australia too, check it out. Cold air being injected into Australia, warm air being injected into Antarctica. Here are the western jet streams. And continued oddities there over South America as we have jet stream flowing north and then getting all dispersed. Very odd, very ionosphere-like jet stream anomalies. And look at that bend over the northern Atlantic Ocean. 2 180-degree turns over about 2,000 miles there. Hey, Smash Team! Thanks for tuning in, but don't go anywhere, because there's more bonus features. Did you watch yesterday's cosmology segment? We enjoyed it. And if you're a new viewer, were you aware that we're not only smAsho, but I'm also a client? I'm not only smAsho, but I'm also a client. Anyway, watch yesterday's video if you haven't seen it. And thanks everybody who presses like and subscribe on YouTube. Please press the notification bell. Not sure whether that'll do anything or not, but press it anyway. I don't know what it does to the analytics, probably a whole lot of nothing. Also follow us on alternative social media like Minds.com. That's Minds.com/smAsho, where we do things like daily meme dumps, as well as advertise our BitChute exclusive content. And today's is entitled BitChute exclusive Dumpster Fire / Trainwreck, the DNC, Pete versus Bernie, Shadow Inc., and Tyranny. There's a thumbnail. Hi, Mom. If you enjoy our content, please help to ensure our continued existence by supporting us via Patreon, the main source of funding currently. And we will be firing smAsho staff. Just kidding. We'll be filing nonprofit paperwork this month in February so that we can make your donations tax deductible. Also, we'll be shooting a video today about unified theory featuring Eugene Bagashov, Eugene the philosopher.
All these topics, space, time.
But more importantly, the astrophysicist. And we'll be talking about unified theory as consolidation of a unified theory, creation of a unified theory of physics is one of the main aspects of smAshomash.org. Here's a tidbit. We'll leave links to Eugene's philosophy video about layers of Lovecraft.
Like, etc., etc. So, yeah.
All right, don't copyright us. Here's a quote from Eugene, I think.
We're not at the center of the universe, then understanding that we're not even, our galaxy is not even the whole universe, right?
Excellent quote. Perfect quote. Here's the latest very high-res image of that sunspot. And I'm not sure if it'll be named or not. The trailing umbra looks like it has weakened since just a half an hour ago. So this thing might not ever get named, although it did certainly have umbra. Here's the view from the colorized magnetogram. And you can see I just hit refresh there. So again, there's the current high-res view in the intensity gram. And it looks like that umbra is degrading. And there are the fields. I think maybe because I have 67 tabs open, it could be causing some slowness to occur. Stay tuned for a bonus, a feature. And if you're wondering what the 94 angstroms view is, I just put up this image here. This is one of the solar flare studying views, and that's why it takes an image every 2 seconds instead of every 10 seconds. And this is iron 18, 17 times ionized iron. And that is a 48-hour video loop. And this is a good one to use, by the way, folks, if you want to use HelioViewer to get a very, very high-res image of a sunspot. And it'll also capture some other interesting features like these little sprites that we see, little bits of ionized iron flying around like comets just above the chromosphere. So anyway, we're out. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, stare at the sun, don't drink, and if you do, don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, may that solar wind be at your back and that atherosclerosis absent from your veins.